Well, folks, the haters were right. And honestly, credit where credit is due, because that is not a sentence anyone loves saying out loud, but here we are. Brandon Aiyuk just posted a two-part statement on Instagram that was supposed to clear the air, supposed to finally give us the real story behind his messy, drawn-out fallout with the San Francisco 49ers. And instead, he somehow found a brand new way to complicate his own situation. If there was a manual titled How to Sabotage Your Own Comeback, Brandon Aiyuk is out here writing the sequel in real time, and today we are breaking down exactly what he said, why most of it does not add up, and why this might genuinely be the last time we ever need to talk about this saga. Unless something truly wild happens, like a release or a jersey swap to Washington. So here is the setup. Just after 9 in the morning on a random Tuesday, Aiyuk drops two separate posts detailing his version of events with the 49ers and laying out supposedly his plans moving forward. Let's actually read through what he said, because the wording matters here more than you might think. In the first post, he claims that when the news broke that his guarantees were voided back in November, the team continued lying to the media and to the fan base, acting like that decision had not actually been made months earlier back in July. He also claims the team kept publicly insisting he would return, despite him telling them repeatedly that he would not be coming back. He says that with the severity of his injury and with the guarantees no longer on the table, returning simply was not an option anymore. He then points out that it has been almost a full year since the team voided those guarantees over what they claimed was missed rehab, and he insists there is GPs tracking data and footage proving he actually hit performance markers he had never hit before. All accomplished before his surgeon's own recovery timeline even required it. Then comes part two, shorter, punchier, and honestly the part that got everybody's attention. He says he will not be reinstating with the 49ers, nor will he ever do business with them again. He says he is locked in, focused entirely on getting back onto a football field this season. And then he closes it out with a hashtag that reads, Raise Hell. Now let's start with the most glaring issue buried right there in plain sight, because it says everything about where this situation actually stands. He specifically wrote that he will not be reinstating with them, meaning the 49ers. But here is the problem. That is simply not how reinstatement works in the NFL. You do not reinstate with an individual team. You reinstate with the league itself, the NFL. Once you are reinstated by the league, then and only then can a team actually trade you, release you, or otherwise move on from your contract. So either Aiyuk genuinely does not understand the very process that stands between him and getting back onto a football field, or he misspoke in a moment of frustration while writing what was clearly a more polished, more deliberate statement than his usual social media posts. And look, this was a grown man, a player who has made an enormous amount of money in his career through a combination of talent and some genuinely savvy decisions along the way. But given everything that has unfolded over the past several months, he does not exactly get the benefit of the doubt anymore. Whether it is a simple mistake or a fundamental misunderstanding of league procedure, the end result is the same. He is telling the world he refuses to take the one concrete step that could actually move this situation forward. Let's rewind and unpack his account of what actually happened, because there are some real inconsistencies worth pointing out. He claims the team lied to everyone by pretending the decision to void his guarantees was not made back in July. Except that part simply is not accurate. Kyle Shanahan himself stood at a press conference and openly stated that the front office had reached that decision back in July. So right out of the gate, the very first claim in this statement does not line up with what was said publicly on the record. Now, the next part of his account, the part about the team continuing to say he would return even after he told them privately that he would not, that part is a little murkier, and honestly, a little more understandable if you sit with it. If Aiyuk had any inkling that his guarantees were going to get voided after suffering a serious injury. especially if there is any truth to the reports that the team was actively shopping him around while he was still in a hospital bed recovering from surgery. Then it makes sense why he might not have felt like a valued, respected piece of that organization anymore. Remember the swirl around a potential trade to the Steelers, with the Patriots and Browns also reportedly in the mix at different points. Remember how long it took him to sign his extension in the first place, which by most accounts soured the relationship on both sides before this injury situation ever came into play. There is a lot of he said, she said tangled up in all of this, and honestly, it is completely reasonable to understand why a player in that position might not feel comfortable suiting back up for a franchise that seemed ready to move on from him the moment things got difficult. But here is where his account runs into a real, documented process problem. He claims the issue was that he rehabbed away from the team, and to be fair, that part on its own is not actually against the rules. Reports suggest the 49ers were fine with him being elsewhere during parts of his recovery. The actual issue is that when a player chooses to rehab away from the team facility, there is a required window where he still has to show up, undergo a physical evaluation, and formally demonstrate that he is healthy and ready to return. That window typically falls somewhere before organized team activities or training camp, and according to multiple reports, Aiyuk simply did not show up within that required time frame to complete that evaluation. So even if his broader claim is true, and there is actually video evidence from last August showing him running full routes ahead of a preseason game, which does suggest he was ahead of his own recovery timeline, the guarantees still got voided because of a procedural failure to check in on time, not because the underlying injury concerns were somehow fabricated. So where does that leave us? Honestly, deep in he said, she said territory, the kind of dispute where both sides have a sliver of a legitimate grievance, and neither side comes out looking especially clean. And that is exactly why this needs to be the last time we spend an entire video dissecting the back and forth. Here is the only piece that actually matters moving forward. Whether or not Aiyuk fully understands how reinstatement works, he has now publicly stated he is not applying for it at all. Unless this entire saga has somehow been an elaborate, multi-month troll operation, which, let's be honest, would require a level of calculated patience that simply does not match the pattern of behavior we have watched play out in real time. This is not some perfectly orchestrated plot twist. He has gotten Jayden Daniels to respond to him directly on social media. Jayden Daniels' own mother retweeted commentary specifically about growing frustration with Aiyuk. Nobody sets up that level of chaos, drags actual players and their families into the middle of it, purely as an elaborate long con with a secret twist ending nobody saw coming. No, when he says he is not applying for reinstatement, the far more reasonable read is that he genuinely means it, at least for right now. And to be clear, none of this means he does not want to play football again. He said as much himself in that very same statement where he declared he would not be reinstating. He also said he is locked in and fully focused on getting back onto a football field this season. Those two things sitting side by side in the same statement is honestly the whole story in a nutshell. This is a man who clearly still wants to play, who still believes his career is not over, but who appears to have absolutely no functional plan for how to actually accomplish that goal. And closing the whole thing out with a hashtag that reads "Raise Hell" only muddies the waters further. Brother, nobody is trying to keep you from playing football at this point except the actual process standing directly in front of you. The trolling, the cryptic videos, the Instagram posts, the YouTube appearances, all of it has already made its point loud and clear. There is really only one major step left to take, arguably two if you count clearing up an outstanding legal matter. But the primary one is simple: apply for reinstatement. And he is choosing not to. Here is a detail that makes this whole situation even stranger. A few weeks back, it was reported that Aiyuk had actually relocated, renting a house in Northern Virginia. Sit with that for a second. This is a man who has a home in San Jose, likely other properties scattered around given his contract value. And he chose, out of every possible location in the entire country, to post up in Northern Virginia while he remains under contract with a team based in San Francisco. You do not just casually decide to live near Washington's practice facilities unless some part of you genuinely believes that is where your football future is headed. He clearly believes he is going to end up playing for the Commanders. The problem is, believing it and actually taking the procedural steps required to make it happen are two very different things, and right now, he is only doing the former. There is actually a fresh anecdote worth sharing here too. A story that dropped just recently from someone who has spent time down on Radio Row during past Super Bowl weeks. The event where fans and media get a chance to interact directly with players walking through, asking lighthearted questions like "What animal would you be?" or "What is your favorite football memory?" According to this account, a fan who had traveled all the way from Mexico specifically to meet Aiyuk stepped up, told him he did not even have a question, just wanted to hand over a small handmade trinket as a gift. Aiyuk reportedly glanced at it, tossed it over his shoulder without a second thought, and moved straight on to the next question. When later asked what animal he would want to be, he apparently answered a lion, because lions are the king of the jungle. Look, there is still room to defend some of what Aiyuk has gone through here. There is still a reasonable case that the 49ers organization treated him with a lack of respect during a genuinely difficult stretch of his career. But moments like that one do not exactly help his image, and they are worth sitting with honestly rather than brushing aside. So here is the balanced, no-spin verdict on where this whole situation actually stands. There is a real defensible case that Aiyuk was wronged by the 49ers to some degree throughout this process. There is also a real case that he wronged the 49ers right back, arguably more publicly and more aggressively. The organization is being petty about how they have handled this, but they have every legal right to be because he signed a contract and he has since gone out of his way repeatedly, publicly, to make that organization look bad in the process. So do not be surprised if their pettiness escalates right back, pursuing every guaranteed dollar and every bit of that signing bonus they are legally entitled to chase down. It is entirely believable that Aiyuk did not feel comfortable in that locker room anymore. Entirely believable that he felt disrespected by his own head coach, and entirely believable that he genuinely values his personal happiness over squeezing every last dollar out of a broken relationship, which is obvious given just how much guaranteed money he is walking away from by refusing to simply show up and play it out. But none of that changes the fact that he has handled almost every single step of this situation with a startling lack of maturity, and now finds himself at a point where it genuinely looks like he does not know what comes next. And that is really the tragic irony sitting underneath all of this. Brandon Aiyuk built an entire career doing things his own way. He barely played a single year of high school football before working his way up to a Division I program, then became a first-round draft pick, played in a Super Bowl, and eventually signed a contract worth well over $100 million. He fired his own agent along the way and has largely charted his own course through this entire situation without much outside guidance. That kind of self-made confidence got him remarkably far. But now, for possibly the first time in his career, he has hit a wall where his own instincts are not enough, where doing it his way is actively working against him, and it does not appear he knows how to pivot. If there truly is some grand, secretly brilliant master plan behind all of this, genuinely show it to us. Because from where we are sitting right now, there is no visible plan at all. Just escalating videos, escalating statements, and zero forward progress on the one procedural step that would actually move things along. All of the trolling, the escalating jokes, relocating to Virginia, posing with a football and a Commander's hat, the public anger, the calling people out, sharing his side of the story, even appealing to the Players Association, all of it ultimately serves the same self-interested purpose: keeping his name in headlines while avoiding the one uncomfortable, boring, bureaucratic step that would actually get this resolved. If you genuinely want off that roster and want to end up in Washington, the answer has never been complicated. Apply for reinstatement. We actually went looking for the NFL's official rules on reinstatement, and it turns out there is no clean, publicly available rulebook laying it all out step by step. So it is impossible to say with total certainty whether reinstatement is a hard requirement before a team can release a player. But after searching, there is no documented case of a player getting released without first going through reinstatement. So it is fair to assume, at minimum, that getting reinstated only helps his case, not hurts it. Go do that. Instead of posting cryptic videos online about legal warrants in California, go face the actual organization you believe wronged you. Force their hand. Show up, start training publicly, make it clear you are ready to compete, and put them in a position where keeping you sidelined becomes a financial and public relations liability. That is genuinely how situations like this get resolved. And right now, he is simply not doing it. So consider this the final Aiyuk deep dive, at least until something genuinely changes the equation, whether that is an actual release or a jersey swap to Washington. And if neither of those things happens, this Commander's receiver room, as currently constructed, is what the team is heading into the season with, unless a completely different name like Stephon Diggs ends up walking through the door instead. So now it is your turn. What do you actually make of all of this? Do you think Aiyuk genuinely does not understand the reinstatement process, or do you think there is something deeper going on that we are not seeing? Drop your honest takedown in the comments below, because this fan base always brings the best perspective on situations like this. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you are new around here, go ahead and subscribe so you never miss the next update the moment this story actually moves. We appreciate every single one of you for tuning in, and we will catch you in the next one.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.